Grazie, grazie.
Un po' più sostenuto questo applauso.
Fate l'applauso.
Fate un bel applauso più
forte.
sostenuto a Roberto Muzzetta, per favore.
Allora, da anni noi come Pride riteniamo che parlare di diritti LGBTQ+, sia anche parlare di diritti umani. Tutte le volte che vi è una violazione dei diritti umani deve rientrare nella nostra piattaforma. E questo in un'ottica di intersezionalità, perché o i diritti sono tutti o se no diventano privilegi se difendiamo e ci battiamo solo per alcuni e non per altri. E facciamo anche questo tipo di attività di attenzionare nei nostri programmi, nelle nostre piattaforme politiche, la violazione dei diritti umani a 360 gradi, anche con un'ottica internazionale, perché il movimento LGBTQ+ è un movimento globale, è un movimento internazionale. Noi riceviamo forza quando parliamo con gli attivisti di altri paesi, diamo forza e diamo un senso di appartenenza che va al di là dei confini di una città, di una regione, di un paese o addirittura di un continente. In quest'ottica il Milano Pride da anni ha inserito nel documento politico questioni che riguardano chiaramente le tematiche LGBTQ+, ma anche altre tematiche come l'abilismo, il razzismo, violazioni dei diritti umani in altri paesi. Abbiamo preso posizione anche su conflitti geopolitici che possono in apparenza non riguardare direttamente le nostre tematiche. 2 anni fa anche nel nostro documento politico abbiamo parlato di Ucraina e quest'anno abbiamo parlato del conflitto in Medio Oriente. E questo nostro posizionamento avviene anche con l'invito agli attivisti che vengono nelle nostre piazze e sul palco del Pride a parlare dei diritti violati. Abbiamo avuto in questi anni attivisti ucraini, georgiani, russi, ceceni, egiziani, algerini, marocchini, cinesi, proprio ieri, giapponesi che hanno parlato appunto della situazione anche in Asia. E oggi avremmo dovuto avere con noi Elias Wakeem, che è un attivista palestinese, attivista palestinese con cittadinanza israeliana e che avrebbe dovuto essere qui con noi. Purtroppo ha avuto un piccolo infortunio, nulla di grave, ma insomma sufficientemente grave da impedirgli di spostarsi. E quindi quello che abbiamo deciso di fare, perché è importante sentire la sua voce in questo momento storico in cui quello che sta avvenendo a Gaza è chiaramente sotto gli occhi di tutti e noi come Pride non possiamo ignorarlo, abbiamo deciso di fare un'intervista online l'altro giorno, facendogli di fatto le domande che gli avrei fatto da questo palco. Abbiamo fatto questa intervista, l'abbiamo tradotta velocemente, ci scusiamo di alcuni strafalcioni nella traduzione perché non c'è stato il tempo, troverete magari un po' di parole a caso perché la traduzione automatica ha tradotto Hamas con gli Abbas e così via, quindi state attenti nel leggere i sottotitoli. Però è importante esserci, è importante sentire la voce anche un po' disperata di questo nostro fratello o sorella diciamo palestinese. A voi l'intervista che abbiamo fatto 2 giorni fa ad Elias Wakeem.
Grazie Roberto.
Hello Elias, thank you to join to our Pride Square, although not in presence. We are very happy to have you here with us, although just on a video. We hope maybe in the next future you could visit us in presence.
Inshallah.
So
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be part of this, and I really wish from the bottom of my heart that I literally was with you physically there right now, but the circumstances and life just wouldn't let me. But I'm still happy that I'm getting the option to actually speak out and to talk to you right now, Roberto. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So let's start with the first question. The October 7 attacks by Hamas against Israel have significantly impacted public opinion. Most Western media have described these attacks as an unprecedented turning point in the region's recent history, with unpredictable and tragic consequences. However, as the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres noted, the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. Can you explain what life was like for queer Palestinians in Israel before October the 7th?
It's a well-written question, has a lot comes with a lot of baggage. I have to say, you know, it it's a bit not easy for me as a Palestinian, not just a queer, just as a Palestinian, uh, to see that like only now the world has awakened, like something like what happened, which is totally horrific, what happened in the 7th of October, in order for people to actually to understand or to try to look over. So before I even talk about what the queer Palestinian life was before, I mean, even for me as a Palestinian, to talk about what happened, it's not, you know, I was born into this. This is not something that just came, you know. I actually literally was born inside occupied Palestine, and I have Israeli passport, and I've lived here. Like, I don't know anything else's. So when we were asked about what is this horrific thing that happened on 7th of October and what was life before, and like, how about 1948, you know, where actually more than half of my family was evicted and doesn't live in Palestine. They live abroad in Lebanon or in Australia, or I don't know, and they cannot come and visit. So when people talk about the 7th of October as if it's a moving corner, it's very upsetting, because things have not, of course, have not started now. This is my cat Bagheera. He wants to say hi. Okay, he doesn't. Um, so that being said, when I'm asked such a question, it's very. I mean, I would be starting to tell my, like, where I was born, my parents, my grandparents, and my grandparents, and we would never be ending of talking about like horrific things that happened throughout history that I actually was born into. Um, you know, looking at what happens in the world and about how much, you know, horrific things we are seeing, especially in places of conflict. For me, it's not shocking anymore on one hand, but on the other hand, of course, it is, because even living inside occupied Palestine, which is called Israel, and feeling that I have rights, it's a lie on itself. It's a bit sociopathic, you know, because I have friends in the West Bank, I have friends in Gaza who have been going through tremendous, horrific things, like on a daily basis, and they're Palestinian like myself. Like, I have friends who are Palestinians who cannot visit here because they were born abroad, and they're not Jewish. So, talking about the 7th of October as if it is, I mean, maybe the only good thing that came out of it, I would say, I mean, it's not really good. It's just, at least it puts a little bit hope for me when I think about it, is the fact that as the world is seeing. But even me saying that, I'm a bit, I'm sad. Why I'm not just sad. I'm actually, I feel really angry while saying it, because why did 50,000 people has to die in Gaza in order for the world to wake up? And this is first thing. Second thing, I mean, we talk about the 7th October. How about 2019? How that Gaza went under attack by the Israeli military? How about, like, every other year, Gaza, which is all like a bit over 300 square meter area that is overly populated, more than 1.5 million people live there. Cannot they live an open air prison for more than 15 years. For more than, there's kids who literally were born into this big prison, and cannot like, don't even see the life out of it, right? And they went through this, like, what we are seeing, what we're witnessing right now. It happens every other year in Gaza. This is not new in Gaza. While we don't, why did 7th of October has to happen in order for the world to wake up? I mean, like, aren't other people that died along the years, aren't humans? We don't talk about them. Why is the world haven't seen that before? So I think in my eyes, or when from what I know, when we talk about the 7th of October, it's what's really important, especially for people who live abroad, is to open the internet, write Gaza, see what happened in Gaza just throughout the last 20 years. Don't even go further, just in the past 20 years, and think, if you would have been living there, what have you done? Like, what would have, how would your life have been? You know? So I think it's really important to just know, to make this point, be awaken people, not just awaken people worldwide, awaken governments, people deaths, whatever in the world is not human. I mean, we are given this life of humanity. Why don't we use it? So I didn't even say anything about queer Palestinians, even though you asked me about queer Palestinians. But it's, you know, queers the queer community, or the queer liberation started from a liberation against oppression. How can we talk about, you know, queer Palestinians before we talked about me being a Palestinian, you know? So I think it just goes along one with another.
We can talk about queer Palestinian more in depth later. There is a specific question.
Absolutely.
Second question. Following the events of October 7 and the subsequent escalation in Gaza and in the West Bank, reports indicate a troubling surge in repression against dissenting Jews and Israeli Palestinians. In particular, Israeli Palestinians have faced intensified scrutiny and limitation on their movements and activities. There have been numerous accounts of arbitrary arrest, harassment, and heightened surveillance. The community reports feeling more marginalized and vulnerable than ever, with many expressing fears for their safety and future. Can you tell us more about the current situation in Israel, for you as a Israeli citizen with Palestinian heritage? How the Israeli LGBT community have reacted to that?
So, you know, talking about the situation has been really, really, really very just scary for all of us. You know, this is not different from before. The only difference is that we hear a lot of bombs around. I live very close to the Lebanese border. There's a lot of we hear sirens, we hear bombings, we see sometimes in the air. So it's not, you know, it's not a normal life. It's just in general for anyone. I would say. Now, for me as a Palestinian, I am a bit over, like, you know, I've been around. I've lived in multiple cities around, and it was never easy to be a Palestinian. You know, I wouldn't feel safe to say I'm a Palestinian in most of the cases. Why? Because it's, even if I say that, I'm definitely like it, I can easily be either imprisoned. I can easily, you know, be attacked. I can easily be called out for being a racist, or like the different, or a terrorist, or like a lot of different kind of things. You know, similar. So it's a bit. It never was easy. The only difference is that it's just getting worse. You know, in what sense? So let's say when I studied at university, I went to a school, an art school in Jerusalem, and I used to do a lot of, like, as an activist and an artist and activist. I really, like, believe that, like, if I'm an artist and I'm not going to talk about, like, all the things that I believe in, like, while doing my art, then who am I, right? So while being a student, you know, as a normal, I think in my eyes, student, especially in the art field, I want to try, I want to experience, I want to, like, you know, see how people react. I do a lot of performance art. For the people who doesn't know what performance art is like a theater, but in the art, like in the figuratively, like more like in the art field, that basically it's like Marina Abramovich, the very famous performance artist, where she just stands up in a museum, in a gallery, and does her own thing, like uses the body in order to talk about something. So when I used to do it 10 years ago, when I used to go to school, I used to talk about being Palestinian. I used to talk about being queer at the time. And it was like people would object. People would call me out. I had people even like hit me. I had people like throw stuff at me at school, at university. I had people shout at me that my passport needs to be taken from me. It's not that I have any other passport, you know. That's not the passport that I have. Like all different kind of things. Or I had people telling me I should be thrown in the sea, you know, stuff like that. Just because I said I'm a Palestinian, people had no problem with me saying I'm a queer. But when I say I'm a Palestinian, it's just like people said that. But it was still, I could say it. Nowadays, I'd be afraid. I'd be terrified, actually. 10 years ago, I used to go to demonstrations. It's not that they weren't violent, they were violent demonstrations. I was arrested, actually, one time, and I had to sleep in jail. I was in a detention center because of participating in a peaceful protest in Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem against settlers that are taking homes that they are declaring after like 2,000 years that they have a lease for houses of Palestinians. Palestinians are taken out, and we so I used to go and protest with international, with even Israeli activists against what happened there, and I was arrested. That was 10 years ago or 12 years ago. Nowadays, we hardly can go on the streets. We're directly being killed, and no one is talking about it. We're literally being assaulted like this, and it's the normal, you know. Like we're being shot even more and more and more and more and more on a daily basis. So it's a very tough answer even for me, because it's not that it changed much. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse on a daily basis. And it's just been really terrifying living here. And I live inside occupied Palestine, inside like compare, and I'm not in the West Bank, and I'm not even in Gaza. I can't even imagine what a person can have or can live who lives in Gaza or in the West Bank can you know, what kind of feeling or what can he do about it. Now, speaking of the Israeli LGBT community, we're talking about people who are, most of them went to the army because military is obligatory for Israeli Jews, and it's the same like the Israeli, like the regular Israeli public opinion. We don't talk about being Palestinians. We don't talk about it at all. It's not something that being discussed. And if you bring it up, you're a traitor. If you bring it up, you're not from us. You don't deserve your passport. You don't deserve to be paid for public insurance. La 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 la, and all of this thing. So it's just getting more and more extreme. And I would say it's nowadays. And it was before, but nowadays I definitely would say this piece of earth is not for humans. Like absolutely, like it's not for people who want to flourish.
So let's ask the third question that is also about what happens in Palestine and the condition of being queer. Critics have targeted the queer community in Europe and in America for condemning Israel's genocide in Gaza, arguing that Palestinian society harbors deep-seated homophobia compared to the more open and accepting Israeli society. Can you provide more insight into the condition faced by queer Palestinians in the occupied territories?
I mean, I can try, but as I mentioned, I did not, and I do not live in the West Bank, so it's a bit hard for me to speak from that place. But what I can say is that people in the West Bank, you know, like this whole claim that like Palestinian society harbors deep-seated homophobia compared to the more accepting Israeli societies. Let's not forget that people in the West Bank, they live under military regime. I mean, although they call it the Palestinian Authority, the PA, but the PA is who runs the PA? Who runs the borders? Who makes sure, like, why there's no airport in the West Bank? Why there is no, like, you know, military in the West Bank? Like, if the Palestinian Authority has an authority, how come is that after so many years, like, there is a Palestinian president, right? But there's no military, there's no you know, it's so it's not a real country. It's a military regime that is being led by people who are being played by the Israeli system, the Israeli government 100%. So it's very tough to talk about how the queer, you know, like, to be saying that the queers in Palestine have more hardships than the Palestinians in general. It's a bit unfair, even though it might be right in some places. But I mean, do you think there's no homophobes here inside Israel? I mean, I was assaulted multiple times. Sorry.
Also by your cat.
always. But that kind of assaultment, I have no problem with it. This cutie pie. So I was actually assaulted by. Okay, hold on. No, not the camera. Okay. Okay. Sorry. He wants you to say hi. Say hi.
Hi.
You are being. Hi.
Beautiful.
Hi from Palestine. Free Palestine. Yeah, go free yourself from me. So it's what I was saying is that it's really tough to talk, you know, to kind of do this comparison, especially that people has no basic human rights. When we're talking about the West Bank, we're talking about a zone. I mean, you can Google it. I mean, everything that I'm saying, literally everything is online. You know, I'm not spilling secrets. I'm not saying stuff that are you know, top secretive stuff. Everything that I'm saying is online. If you go on Google Maps and see the amount of settlements inside the West Bank, huge ass settlements. When we're saying about settlements, it's new cities that are being developed on a daily basis, from small to bigger to bigger. We're talking about smaller, you know, cities from small to big that a bunch of people, extremists, right-wing, racist extremists who come with the Israeli military. They just hop on a Palestinian land in the West Bank. They take over few acres, and they build their own houses. They start from barricades on Palestinian people's lands, and we're talking about Palestinians who, in most cases, they're farmers. So we're talking about people, like, you know, just extreme right wingers who will literally, you know, take over a land of Palestinian farmers. So basically, they're cutting them off from their own, you know, from their living, from their own job, and from their life and from their land, and they live there. They start from small barricades and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the Israeli military is protecting them, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. This thing, it's happening on a daily basis. If you go on Google and check, just go on Google Maps, open the West Bank, you will see how those segregated. We're talking about places that are like newly and they built their own houses on land. No you know, and it is against international law, and no one says anything about it. And what it does is it's just putting other people who live already in Palestine, in the West Bank, and more segregated communities, and it's basically it's separating people. It's separating people from their own families, from their own lives, and we're talking about very vicious and extremist people who have no problem. They have usually also guns, and we're talking about people who usually went to the military. Yeah, so they have their own guns and they kill Palestinians all around, and no one gives them like a shit about it. So it's really tough for me talk like this is what I know about the West Bank, because this is what I visit. To come and talk about queer rights, I mean, while there's no rights at all as a humans, it's hypocritical in the least. So yeah, I hope I'm really trying to find answers, but it's deeper than that, because for me, at the end of the day, as a queer activist, you know, when I'm fighting for my own freedom, I'm not fighting for my own freedom just in Palestine or in Israel. I'm doing it for the whole world. You know, the fact that I like to put nail polish on, like, be in this look and like go out and put a wig on, you know, this is a global fight for all of us queers around the world, you know. To talk about diversity, to show diversity, to show that we're humans and we deserve to be humans, in the least within our own choices. It's just here that it's a bit, it has this extra baggage, you know, that it's not even post, it's pure colonialism, and when you deal with it, it's just really tough. It's inhuman in the least.
Thank you for your words. The images of suffering, mass murder, and displacement in Gaza have awakened global consciousness about the plight of the Palestinian people. What action can the international queer community take to help stop the horrors unfolding in Gaza?
Yes, what we are witnessing in Gaza, it's not just a humanitarian crisis, it's tragedy. It's a global tragedy, it's a world tragedy. The amount of killings, the amount of destruction, the amount of just vicious attacks, ongoing attacks that are not finishing. It's just horrific. I mean, like, even speaking about it, it's just really tough for me, especially as a Palestinian. And for me, it just feels sometimes so hopeless. But to your question, I would say we have to talk about Palestine. I mean, like, this is a wake-up call to unfold over 70 years of occupation that we have been living under. We have living under colonial regime. We have lived under a dictatorship under the name of democracy. We are living under a total, and that is not just good for Palestinians, but for all humans that are living here. What the global community, I would say, in my opinion, is especially that there is this awareness that finally, I would say, is kind of coming up and coming together. I would say, do not stop talking about the free Palestine. Read about Palestine, talk about Palestine, understand where all this came from, how in the hell Gazans live in the blockade, why there's a West Bank, why there's Israelis, Palestinians with Israeli citizenships, why there is Palestinians living in Lebanon and living abroad. Like, use this in order to talk to your governments, to talk about the fact that Palestinians are humans. We are humans. We're not just a name. We are not a trend. We are not something to to put a post on and we stand with Rafah, or we're humans and we're dying, not just from yesterday. People in Gaza have not been dying from the day before yesterday. We have been dying. We have been living under this for over 70 years. And this is humanity's wake-up call to do something about it. Because we are all in line for this death. Just for me, by talking to you guys right now, this is what I was telling you, Roberto. I have my own concerns about, I don't know what's gonna happen to me tomorrow. And I live, alhamdulillah, I live like in a peaceful, like I live in a city that is, I don't want to even tell you where I live, like literally, I'm afraid. I don't know what would happen to me tomorrow if this is going to be internationally broadcasted. But it definitely can put any danger on me. I can be in prison tomorrow, and you will not hear about it even, because I'm a Palestinian at the end of the day. So what you can do is talk about Palestine more and more and more and more and more. Not just about queer Palestine, not just about women Palestine, men, but just about Palestine and Palestinians. And we exist. And until a free Palestine, until Palestine will be free, no one will be free from this atrocious, vicious attacks that we have been witnessing on Gaza and for over 70 years in Palestine.
You already mentioned that you worked as an artist. So now we have a question about your art. As an artist dedicated to creatively and politically representing the essence of queer Palestine, can you tell us more about how your art and how it is related to queer Palestine movement?
Of course. And it's a really interesting question. I think it's an important question that I will also connect it with what we were saying about the fact that people say and think that Tel Aviv is a queer haven. So Israel has this strategy or propaganda, which internationally it's known as a pinkwashing. For who do not know what pinkwashing is a deliberate strategy that the Israeli government and agencies use in order to promote Israel's relatively progressive stand on gay rights. And they do that in order to basically deflect international attention from its violation of human rights and international law. While Israel promote itself as an LGBT progressive country, the same legal system that gives LGBTQI plus rights in Israel, it's the same system that has more than 60 laws that discriminate against Palestinians, like the return law, like confiscation lands, like the Nakba law, and way many more laws. And this whole idea that Israel is a safe haven is just a lie. All what it does is just so you will not be looking at what Israel is actually doing inside on a daily basis. For me, as Elias, not just as a Palestinian, when I was aware about me being gay, let's say, at first, before even like knowing what queer is, and how I can became to understanding, I feel like the moment I realized that as an artist, I have a responsibility towards not just Elias the Palestinian, but Elias the human. I knew that queer is what I am, and what queer, the whole queer liberation movement started, fighting against oppression, international oppression. And when I say that I'm a queer, for me, it's political in itself. You know, I actually find it hard for people who say queer and don't know what queer is, even though like usually people who don't know what queer is, they say they're gay or they're, I don't know, whatever. But for me, being you know, when I as Elias, when I realized that when I started to talk about me being Palestinian and I want to, you know, fight against the oppressive regime that I live under, um, it goes hand in hand with fighting against homophobia. It goes hand in hand with fighting against transphobia. That's what we call intersectionality. You know, you cannot be, you know, fighting one, you know, against one oppression and forgetting the other oppressions. Otherwise, like, this is hypocritical, in the least. So as an artist, and as an artivist, saying the word queer in itself, I think it's not just important, it's actually crucial for me, in order to express who I am in the first place, and to give the first impression as well for the people in front of me.
Just a little addition in your bio on your website. The title, which really I think is beautiful, is existence is resistance. Can you just spend a few words in describing that, the meaning for a queer Palestinian of that line, very powerful line?
Absolutely, existence is resistance. It's a sentence that have been that have been going with me for a long time now. It's actually something that I not just believe and I live. I live in. In Arabic, we say al-wujud muqawama. Existence is resistance. Existence is resistance. It's what, you know, when you live, when you were born living under occupation, and you have to deal with it on a daily basis. Not just with the oppressors, but with like everyone around you. It's like you're always in the battle. You're always fighting against something. Like, and sometimes like maybe when I was younger, it was a bit. I had more energy, but like there's this moment where you ask yourself, like, do I have to live in battles all the time? Like, can I take a break? Like, what is this kind of life that it is? But living inside Palestine, you have to do that. Like, otherwise, you know, you're going to be played. You know, at the end of the day, there is a game going around, whatever crazy ass game that is going. But if you're not going to be part of it, you're probably going to be played. So that's where the whole idea of existence as resistance is coming from. When I was telling you, I used to go to school and I used to say, okay, I'm a queer, I'm a Palestinian, and people would object, like, I'm in an art school. I used to ask myself, as an artist, am I not allowed to just do whatever? I mean, not whatever, but I mean, like, in terms of like, I'm in an art school. Am I not there to experience, to express, but like, why am I supposed, like, do you want me to just do a cute painting that talk about the grass in order for me to exist, and to be a beautiful ornament? No, I won't. I mean, what kind of life is that? So existence is resistance is this is why it's also in my bio, because it's something that it's actually, I did once a kind of a little lecture about Palestinian queers at Harvard University in the US, and actually this is what I called the whole talk. And it actually arose a very interesting conversation about, you know, the whole idea of existentialism, the whole idea that we were born as humans, we're irrational human beings in order to drink, to eat. You know, those are things that are those are things that are existent. Just they has to exist. They're not necessities. Like, you know, to have this a privilege, to have a necessity, is not something that we have here in Palestine, especially if you want to choose to lead and not to be part of the how do you say, just to go with the flow. Instead, if you want to lead, you have to say your voice out loud. Yeah.
Now we have the last question. The question, of course, about the future. Let's hope not so remote future. So it's a very open question. I guess it's very hard to answer in general, but let's try to make sense of these questions. What are your hopes for the near future for the Palestinian people and for everyone living in Israel and in the occupied territories?
Well, it's it's really tough to. It's a really tough question for me, especially that imagine that while we're talking and like I'm talking to all of you guys. Imagine that people have been displaced more than like 6, 7, 10 times in Gaza. People like lost like hundreds of people from their families, and we're just talking, right? We're having a conversation, and I have this privilege. So it's really hard for me right now to be hopeful. That being said, I hope that people will come to realize that and to Google is an open source. Just go on Google and check it out. And people, in order to realize that Israel is a racist colonial state, pinkwashing is just another tool that it uses in order to abuse and control us Palestinians and Palestinian resources and identities, and in order to speak in our names while promoting their own image as progressive and as liberal. Google it, check it out, and you will understand. It's really easy for me even to come here and check it out by yourself. But don't stay in Tel Aviv. You have to go around and you have to explore a bit more, but be very careful. My hope is to be able to be with you maybe next year, if I'm still gonna be alive and I'm going to be around. My hopes is that the world will be more awakened by us, especially the queer liberations. Imagine that 100 years before there was no such a thing as queer ideology, and now even me, for me, as not just as a Palestinian, just as a human, I have this platform to come to you guys and talk to you and like celebrate with you our queer life as something that is so so filled with love, and so filled with with the main essence of us being humans and enjoying a life at the end of the day. Like, what else do we need at this point of life? At least in my opinion. So my hope is that you take care of yourselves, love yourselves, enjoy Pride, and be proud of not just being queer or being gay or being lesbian or but be proud of being human, and talk about it, and unless free unless there will be queer liberation only when a free Palestine will be as well. At least that's in my opinion, or in my hopes. Let's say it this way.
Thank you very much, Elias, to have joined this call and to be part, although in a remote way, to our Milano Pride. Thank you.
With all love. Thank you for having me, guys. It's such a I'm so happy that I got the chance to talk to you, even though I won't be there. Hoping and wishing you will have a blessful Pride, full of love, full of celebration, and full of joy.